what has happened in your life so far.
Well, let's like backtrack for a bit because we did release a bonus episode.
Yeah, go listen to that if you haven't listened to this one.
Yeah, and so like to briefly explain that. So before the bonus episode, we had guests lined up that we were going to meet with Menna and I to have multiple episodes come out periodically throughout the next couple of weeks. But then out of nowhere, they all started like canceling or rescheduling, and like there was a lot of conflicts. Nothing against them, they have personal lives too. Out of respect, like I wasn't going to like say no, you have to. Like no, they don't have to. That they agreed to be on our podcast voluntarily, and if they couldn't make it, like I completely understand. So we were scramming to figure out an episode. Our schedules that week, as my mom shouts, our schedules that week made it difficult for me to either try to meet with Jason or just try to meet with me to record an episode. So we created a bonus episode instead, and posted that. Which, if you listen to that, I briefly mentioned in that episode that like we had audio already from an old episode that we recorded with me, Minna, and Chris before Chris took his hiatus, and we lost the audio. Like we could not find it anywhere. Only 4 minutes of it survived.
Rip.
And I was like, what? Like I was like listening to it, I was like, why is it only 4 minutes? So I had to put together like so much that I couldn't find. I used the 4 minutes, and I also found like an episode with me, Minna, and Chris, was when we did that Zoom episode, and there was like a conversation about movies that we took out, and I was like, oh, let's just put it in because why not? It's a bonus episode.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that, and then spring break happened, and me and Jason's spring break was around the same time, and you would think, oh, you guys should have had enough time. No, Jason was somewhere, I was somewhere. We both had like trips planned, and those trips were purposely planned to give us time to decompress and de-stress from the school stress we were under. And we just wanted a break for like a week. So right. We didn't meet to record. And so when we were going to meet to record after spring break, a lot happened in our personal lives for the two of us that we were just like, we can't meet this week. Like I was having issues with some friends. School was getting hectic. I had a midterm after spring break. I know your brother popped a tire in his car, and you and your dad were like scrambling to figure out what to do. So there was just a lot happening, and there was just not enough time for us to meet and record.
Yeah, but we're here today, and we've got a really special episode lined up for you guys today.
What about you, Jason? What did you
do?
Oh, wait, why were you so busy?
Why was I so busy? So for those of you that don't know, I'm currently pledging a business fraternity at my school that has taken up a lot of work, but has been really fun and really rewarding. So if you are in college or about to go to college, I really recommend, if you can, rushing a business fraternity. It's super fun. But yeah, so during spring break, I had my fraternal exam to study for, which was a lot of content. And then the week I got back, which was the week that omnia was in spring break, I spent the entire time studying. I had that exam, and then I had a huge interview for that as well. And there's a bunch of like little stuff that I had to do as well. Also with school, I literally have a midterm tomorrow for cognitive psychology, which is going to be an interesting midterm. But yeah, just a lot of studying, doing school stuff. Also, I've been getting a lot of emails from the company that I'm interning with this summer about just some onboarding things I have to do. And I also found out that they're sending me a laptop. I didn't know that.
The company laptop?
Yeah, they said, please give us your address so that we can ship you a laptop. So that's going to be cool. I didn't know that. But yeah, so that's basically what's been going on with me. This week also is, for my fraternity, it's Big Little Week. So we have big brothers, which are kind of like social mentors assigned to us. And the whole week we're trying to guess who they are, and they give us gifts and stuff. And yesterday I got a huge bag of candy and chips, which is really cool. And then my big brother gave me a puzzle to solve. as to giving a hint to who they are, but I have no idea how to solve it. So if you're my big and you're listening to this, that puzzle was not easy to solve, even though you said it was.
I love puzzles, so I could have finished it in like an hour if you left me with it.
Yeah, I'll show you it later. It's just like it's one of those things where they wrote a message and each letter is like a different shape, and then they have like a letter assigned to the shape, but he only gave me like half of the letters that are on there.
Gotcha.
So we'll see what it is. But yeah, it's definitely exciting.
And like I said earlier, Minna will be joining us at some point. She, I believe, is doing some schoolwork right now. But if she doesn't join us, Minna, you're a flake. Me and Jason were talking last night, and we were talking about like what's something we really wanted to talk about for this week's episode. And in honor for the Kayley Milor Memorial Scholarship, we really wanted to take some time to talk about mental health and time for self-care and things that impact growing up that we don't want to grow up for. Death is a very like hard topic to talk about, but a lot of people don't like talking about it. And I think it's important to have an open dialogue because it's okay to validate and reassure people that it's hard and it's painful and loss sounds so finite. But I found like a social media post that says like, if you can find hope in loss, then there is room to continue and to move on without them, but still carry them with you. And I thought that was like really important to share and talk about. And grieving and loss doesn't have to just be for death too. It can be for anything, the end of a friendship, relationship, like a loss of the job. Like you can grieve the loss of a lot of things. Pet death, like a lot of people take that so underrated, and like a lot of people feel guilty or feel ashamed to be grieving a pet. But those are also members of our lives and our families. And, losing a pet is hard, and it's okay to be upset about that.
Yeah, that's so that I can't emphasize how true that is. And also a lot of people definitely like misinterpret time to grieve. I know a lot of people and even myself that have had moments of grief, but we feel like we don't have a lot of time because we're so busy with everything else that's going on in our life that we don't adequately give enough time to grieve. But it's so important to allow yourself to be in that moment and express all of those feelings of grief, because if you don't give yourself that time to grieve, then it's just going to prolong how you feel later on.
And a lot of people assume like when we talk about grief, like you have to grieve for a certain amount of time, especially when jobs give you bereavement leave and stuff. Like they assume you're supposed to grieve for like the 2 weeks you're off from work and then come back and everything's fine. You can grieve for as long as you want. It's something that you need to experience and feel, and it takes time to process that. I was just thinking about this recently, like when I lost a lot of people in my family in this past year, as Jason knows, and I only allowed myself to be upset about it for a certain amount of time, and then I wanted to get over it. Like I think I was like closed off from everybody and very like ashamed and like guilty of everything that was happening for like a month, and I refused to let myself feel anything. And then after that, as I started getting back to normal, I had multiple deaths happen again, and instead of me allowing myself to grieve those, I was just like, nope, I already did it for a month, I can't do it again. And I've talked about it before, my relationship with my therapist, we were able to talk about that and realize I've never actually fully grieved these, nor did I allow myself to process it, and I'm still grieving in little ways today. So there is no, and like it can end at some point. You can accept it, move on, and be grateful. But if you're still feeling that hurt and that loss, like you can still carry that with you. And another example of grief that isn't a grieving a death, but it's a grieving ending of a friendship. I had a friendship end in like early February, and it's about to be the first week of April this weekend, and I'm still upset about it. And I keep getting into issues with my friends about it, but I'm allowed to be upset. That was a really good friend of mine that I lost. And I'm so upset that I don't have that person in my life. Like I can't call them like I used to. I can't text them like I used to. And I'm going through that process of grieving that friendship. So there is no indefinite timeline of how long you can grieve. You can grieve as long as you want. Some cultures even grieve the loss of their family members and loved ones for the rest of their life. Like that's allowed. There's some cultures where when a wife loses her husband, she continues grieving for the rest of her life until she loses him. Like that, we need to also be respectful and mindful of the different cultures and communities and how they grieve loss as well.
Yeah, I that is such a really important thing that you said on there about how grieving is what I I guess like what I want to say is there's no like strict guideline as you said of like okay, it takes like X amount of days to grieve and then you're done. It's all based on you as a person, and it may not be easy to it's probably going to be really difficult to find how much time it will take for you to be able to grieve for yourself. But there are a lot of different cultures and religions and other practices that people practice and participate in and partake in that helps them be able to fully grieve. And like you said, sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's not as long, but it's very important to appreciate what makes you happy and what brings you that solace. And there's another thing that I wanted to go back that you touched on with hope and say that although it may be like hard to hear or just like weirdly put, but grieving does not have to all be that bad in the sense that you can turn that grief into hope and honor, such as with the Kayley Milor Memorial Scholarship, where you turn your grief into honoring that person or honoring whatever you have lost. And like, for example, yesterday was what would have been my grandfather's 90th birthday. And I spent some time calling my family and honoring his life and talking about like the stuff that he like did in his life and what we loved about him. And yeah, I do still miss him, but it was a time where we took to honor his life and talk about the moments that we love about him and still think and care about him to this day.
Minna just joined us. You ready to come in? A lot of people have this belief or this concept that if you didn't know this person, you're not allowed to grieve them. You're not allowed to be upset about it. You're not allowed to feel sad about it. And it makes me wonder, well, when a celebrity passes away or when a celebrity ends a career, when a band breaks up, people cry and are hurt and are upset with that and grieve that loss of this person that they don't even know and that person didn't even know them.
Yeah, that's totally true.
So even if it's somebody so small but impacted the community, whether it's directly or indirectly, if that death still hurt you, you should be able to grieve that too. I had a friend who her grandfather passed away and I cried about it so hard. Like it was so painful. And I never met her grandfather. And I think it was because, I have that connection with that person. But like if that person has impacted you, whether it's directly or indirectly, and you feel some way towards it, that's valid and it's allowed. I don't like that misconception where like you didn't know them, you shouldn't feel so heartbroken about it. No, like, for example, like this also, like, I mean, granted, I did know my dog, but our dog that passed away in November, that was such a hard death for all of us. And everyone's like, oh, that's just a dog. And a lot of my friends felt that pain too. And I think it's important to understand that our dog was only 11 months old. She was still a baby. She hadn't turned a year yet. And so whenever a young person passes, it's so painful. And I feel so much hurt because of it, because then I start thinking in my head, that young person doesn't get to graduate or get married, or, their parents don't get to see them grow up. And it's so hard to not feel upset about it. So again, I just want to reiterate, if you are impacted, there is resources. There's a lot of grief counseling support groups. Like I said, we've been sharing them on our Instagram stories. It's really important to look into it. You can easily look up in your area too. Like we mentioned before, we live in Maryland. So going on the Maryland state site and looking at resources in the area, you can find so many different groups, different types of group counseling, peer groups, support groups, anything that you need, and for different things as well. I feel like a lot of people, when they hear support groups, they think like NA or AA, but you can find them for about anything. I have a classmate of mine who's in a peer support group for people who have members of their family in the LGBTQIA community, and it's the support group is for their family members who want to make sure that they are supporting their loved ones who are also in this community as well.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that. First of all, I know it's very hard to reach out to these groups because it takes a lot out of your comfort zone to go out and ask for help. And a lot of the times that's the hardest step. And so if you are able to do that, or even just like talk with a friend or a family member, you are already doing the hardest part of this process. And also for our listeners in college right now or university, anything like that, your school, please check out your school's resources, because a lot, like for example, with my school, we have free mental health services and free counseling, and it's just like all you have to do is sign up online, and it can even be online if that is something that you prefer. But your school may have those resources too, so please check that out.
Yeah, I know at my school, we do free mental health screenings in both semesters, as well as we offer free counseling services. I used them in undergrad, and you can sign up and reach out whenever. It doesn't have to be from the beginning of the semester. Even if you end up realizing you want to talk to them at the end of the semester, you can as well. Also, because I am, like I mentioned before, a counseling master's student right now, we are, or my school at least, is opening up a clinic for mental health services as well. So look at your resources. The majority of colleges are becoming more aware of this and offering that resource to students who may not have it outside of school. And you can easily get referred outside, and they can help you look through your insurance formations and help you find something closer to home if when you leave the school and want to continue the service, there is that option.
Yeah, definitely. And even if, I know this is like really, really serious, but even if you do find like a free service and you're recommended to somebody else that costs money, check what insurance plan you're under, because there are some insurance plans that have services that are free, or like certain people that you can see that are either free or very discounted. And I know this is like a really serious like part of it, but it is a way for you to get this help if you are not if you do not know how to get that help.
And I know a lot of you listening probably like, I've never had to think about this, or that never went through my mind. That's the thing about growing up that we don't get taught, being able to ask for help and find that treatment for ourselves, and to talk to somebody and be comfortable talking to somebody, as well as how to do it, the cost of it, that adds more pressure and more stress and anxiety to look for these things. Like, for example, today, I didn't know about like a cashier's check, or like when you give them cash and they write you a check for it. Like, I didn't know about that till my mom told me. And I was telling her, like, I'm saving up this certain amount of money in cash to pay for certain things. And she goes, you can do this in a check, so that when you pay these people, you don't have to put it in your account and then sit and wait. And it's just like this piece of information I didn't know, and I'm learning it. And maybe you never knew this options through insurance plans. And, Jason just told you on this podcast. Some of us learn from experience. Some of us are learning through being taught by somebody else. And some of us just have to plain old research it and do it ourselves.
Yeah. Also, I did want to add on too, like for me personally, I'm in a point in my life where I'm like, as many of you know, going to intern with the company this summer and hopefully work there full time. But part of the things that I was taught when I was like applying for this company was like the insurance policies that they have. And if you are in a position where you're applying for jobs, or even if it's a part-time job, don't be afraid to ask your hiring manager, whoever you're in contact with, about your company's insurance policies, especially regarding mental health or even pet insurance. I know there are some insurance policies that cover your pets or your family members. So like, ask as many questions about that as possible. And if there is something that they don't have, you can always ask like what resources you can use that they have to get the insurance policies that you need.
At my job, our head of HR, she always sends out emails when there's changes in plans and policies. She explains what it is. She also emails us when there is something new that's being added to our benefits. She keeps us all well informed, but also leaves it an open dialogue and open communication with us that if we have more questions and we need more information, she can come, you can come to her and talk to her. I remember a couple of years ago when I first started working there after a year, um, I didn't know about PTO cash out. Like I didn't know I could cash out my PTO and take the money from it. And she called me and we talked about it. And it was really nice, you know, having her explain it to me and not, I don't and feel stupid that I didn't know it. It was something that I didn't know that I could do. And it was an option. And knowing your options and your resources, excuse me, is very important. And having that relationship with my HR, the woman who works in our HR office, and creating that bond with her so I can come to her for help and resources so I know what to do.
Right. Yeah. And I know too, like we're putting all this out for you guys and asking around might be hard too. So you can always, although it may be difficult, try researching it online yourself or just asking again your parents or somebody that you trust
Mm-hmm.
for this information or like advice even on how to go. And I know mental health is such a tender topic that people are like, in my opinion, from what I've seen, are just recently starting to cover and talk about. So like for example, if you're in a class, like I had a class last semester that it was humanistic psychology, but he put a huge emphasis on mental health and on really understanding mental health. And if you have any classes like that, or just professors that you know that they're kind of in that direction of mental health, feel free to ask them for advice or talk to them.
And being patient with ourselves also is so important because a lot of us are just so go, 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 go. And we don't take the time to like, you know, really look into ourselves, like, is this something I want or don't want? And what am I willing to sacrifice and not sacrifice for my own well-being?
Right. Yeah, it's really important to know how to take the time for it. But even if you don't, just start out with like one day where you plan, and even just like on your own, just taking a mental health day is so important. Like and that's something that I need to work on personally, especially with like the past 2 months being super stressful with work and other things that I'm doing in school, that like I need to like take some time out of the day to just have a mental health day. And like the other day, I had like a really important interview. And after that, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to do any work. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to take the time to relax and do what I want to do. And that's a really good step that you can do for yourself. And it may be hard because you may feel unproductive or like that you don't deserve it, but you do. And it is totally okay to take a day for yourself, even if you have to miss a class or work, just taking the time for you, because you do have to put yourself first at times. And it may be hard, but it is super, super necessary.
I remember in high school, the first time I ever heard about mental health day, I was spring of my senior year. And I took a mental health day, but I picked that day to be the same day as bring your child to work day because a lot of people weren't going to be at school anyways. So I knew that the teachers were changing their instruction for that day. So I did it that day. And in high school, I didn't get my license till I was a senior. So I did my license exam on that day. I took that time for that day for me to spend it with my mom. We just kind of did a lot of like self-care stuff. And I remember I came to school the following week after that, and I went to class, and my teacher was like, "Oh, you went to bring your child to work day?" I said, "No, I had a mental health day." And they were like, "Why would you do that? That's like so stupid of you. You could have come to school and learned something." And it really discouraged me from mental health days, and it was really upsetting to hear. I've noticed recently a lot of people say this, and I don't like that kind of philosophy, but they're like, people say if you want a mental health day, you can pick any day to be your mental health day. You can move it around your schedule. Like it doesn't have to be on these specific days. But what if there's a specific day that you want to dedicate to yourself to be your mental health day? No one should tell you to move that around. Like that's not right.
Yeah. And a mental health day for you can be really anything you want. And as Omnia said, like don't let anybody dictate when your mental health day is, because it's only up to you. But I say this because like I know for me there are times where like I want to have a mental health day, but I want to have it with people that I love and care about. But there are also days, if you are like me, that you have to spend by yourself and have time with yourself. Because one thing that I've heard in the past that I still stand by is you have to love yourself in order to be able to love anyone else. You like, not necessarily saying you have to have a mental health day by yourself, because it can be really whatever you want it to be, but also taking that time to be by yourself and be happy and comfortable in your own presence is so important. And if that's how you enjoy spending your mental health day, then that's perfect, because it makes you happy. And that's what the most important part of having a mental health day is, to decompress, relax, and do what you love and want to do.
And, having a mental health day, that's also a form of self-care. And I don't want people to think that, and this is also in my opinion, that whatever day is your mental health day is the only time you can do self-care. You can do self-care in any way, shape, or form. Like us meeting every week to record and releasing a podcast episode is my form of self-care. I get a chance to talk about things that I don't get to talk about with a lot of people. And I also get to catch up with some of my friends. Like that's what I use as self-care. Reading a book every night is a form of self-care. Then do that puzzling, as Jason brought up that he doesn't like to do, doing puzzles. For all of high school and half of undergrad, I spent my time coloring. I bought adult coloring books and I would color. And that was my form of self-care when I was stressed out. So self-care could be literally anything. And it doesn't have to just be done on a mental health day. Like you do a little bit of it at a time. I know some people like to go on walks. So they'll like use walking their dogs a chance for self-care, hiking, like anything that, helps you relax and calm down from a stressful day. Or if there's just like a lot going on that you just need to like relax from, self-care is so important. And it goes unnoticed a lot too.
Yeah, one thing that I like to do is, like I said, is go on walks. Even at night sometimes, because there are times where I'm just like doing so much work and it's like 11 at night and I'm just like, I need fresh air and to go on a walk, and I do that. But also, yeah, there are many little things that you can do. Like if you like just want to watch YouTube videos or be on TikTok, or like one thing that I also like to do is sometimes, if I have the time for it, watch TV shows or movies or do a face mask. And one other tip that I have that I think is super, super helpful and has been very helpful in managing my stress is pick a time every day. Like, for example, for me, it's 9 o'clock. There are some days where I extended to 11, but having a cutoff time where after that time you do no work with school or anything, and you use that time to decompress. And I usually give myself at least an hour each night to just like decompress, relax before I go to bed, and just have that time to myself. Because a lot of people also think that like having your time to sleep is enough for mental health and for relaxing, but it's really not. And if you allow yourself to have like an hour or two each night before you go to bed, it can do wonders, and it can really help you have that time for yourself without like investing an entire day or a huge amount of time to like spend dedicating to your mental health.
Yeah. And you can try different like forms of self-care. Like if you want to see what you like more, like I tried journaling and realized I don't like journaling. Like it's okay to figure out what it is that you do like and don't like.
Yeah, trial and error is so good because it, like you said, helps you figure out what you like and what you don't like.
You learn a lot about yourself too.
And it's okay. Yeah, it's totally okay to not like to do something. It's a learning experience. Mm-hmm. And it's better to try something and not like it than to not try anything at all.
We had a very heavy conversation. So we're going to take a break. For our listeners, especially, to take a moment to decompress. If this did drain you or you felt some kind of way, it's okay to pause the episode, take a break. And we're going to use this time also to take a break for ourselves too, to decompress. We'll try to come back and talk about something less heavy, but we'll have like a moment. Also take this moment to go and donate to the Kayley Milor Memorial Scholarship too.
Yeah, that would mean a lot to us. So thank you for anything, or even again, just listening, because by listening, you are donating. Mm-hmm.
Welcome back. Hope you got a chance to go pee and drink some water.
I know I didn't. Just kidding.
I didn't drink water. I drink soda.
Soda. I hope it was called root beer.
Ew.
I took a year-long break from soda, and then our mom started buying soda, like in like huge packs of it, and
She gets like the little bottles, like
Oh,
the pack of 6 in the little bottles, and so yeah.
So now all I do is drink soda.
Menna is a sodatarian.
I have relapsed into my addiction. No, I'm just kidding.
Speaking of Midnight, this week, guess where she went?
Where did I go?
Guess where Menna
She
went?
went this weekend, or last weekend. By the time you're listening to this, look at her face. Admitted Students Day.
And I dropped
I admitted Students Day was crazy.
She dropped her deposit that day too.
Ooh,
She's officially a college commit.
I got my email today.
Let's go.
Min is committed. Look, she's wearing the merch too. She bought merch.
You guys can't see it, but it looks amazing. Also, I got reached out to today by my first grad school. Yeah, I got a message saying like inviting me to like look into their program and apply. And I'll say it because it's not really like that deep, but it was for Rice University.
Where's that?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
In Texas.
Oh,
I think it's in Texas.
I don't know this.
Yeah.
I know a lot of East Coast schools because we live on the East Coast, but I don't know anything else except like also the big, was it Big 10 schools in the state?
Yeah.
Like not the state, but in the country.
The one school that I'm looking at in the East Coast that I've been like, I actually like signed up for their like stuff. They didn't reach out to me, but it's UNC Chapel Hill.
Why is it so okay? I was thinking about this, but I think the college process and like acceptance is so stupid because hear me out. I know this kid got into Stanford, but got denied by UNC.
Yeah, it's
like it is ridiculous. Like one of my other friends got into Notre Dame, but got denied by UNC. Like,
yeah, like even me, I got
but Notre Dame has a higher standard than UNC.
Yeah, I got rejected, like flat out rejected from Ohio State, but I got waitlisted at Princeton.
Like,
so it's like it's so weird.
Exactly. Like one of my other friends, I don't remember what school she told me she got like rejected from, but she got into UVA.
Yeah. Colleges are crazy. They literally like it's so like SATs and GPAs and stuff, like it literally like doesn't matter. It all depends on what the school is looking for. So you could like get into a school that you like didn't think you'd get into and then get rejected by a school that you got into. You absolutely no idea. It's the weirdest thing ever.
It reminds me of like when I started applying for colleges senior year of high school, that's when they started phasing out requiring SAT and ACT scores. They made it optional.
Yeah. And now it's like almost all optional, I think. Like there's a lot of schools out there that are optional now.
Yeah. When we went on Saturday to Hood for Admitted Students Day, because I go there for grad school, I like ditched her and went to the library to study for my midterm. But there was a double header that day for lacrosse. So men's and women's lacrosse played. We went to the men's game. Me and my friends did. It was insane. They won in overtime too, which was crazy.
I like mentioned this like during the game. I had never seen a men's game before. You think I play lacrosse, I would have seen a men's game. But because like at my school, we're usually playing at the same time as they do, I've never seen a men's game.
Yeah, she was telling us that like because all of her games and practice and stuff is around the same time as the men's. She has never gone and seen a men's game. So she went to all that, but she also went to see the women's game because Minna's going to be playing lacrosse for them. And she is slowly starting to make connections with those girls on the team, especially the ones who are going to be with her as first year students, but also the people in the years above her. And I was talking about it with a friend of mine Saturday night about how there's like this mentality where we can't reach out to somebody and be like, I want to be your friend. I would like to get to know you. It's scary. And we don't know what caused that or started this like concept where you can't do that and my friend I was talking to, she said that she chalks it up to social media. Social media creates this image. It makes everybody look like they're a certain way, and it makes you feel like they're untouchable. You can't be with them. You can't talk to them. You can't be their friend. And it makes it like scary trying to reach out. And 9 times out of 10, how you feel about that person, they probably feel the same way about you, that they want to be your friend and get to know you. And so like that was the things that like I was telling Minna, like reach out to these people. And so then whenever I'd run into these people or see them, I'd be like, oh my God, my sister, she committed to play lacrosse with you. She's like, yeah, I know, I've heard of your sister. And I was like, she seems so sweet. I was like, I always like say like, you know, Minna is almost done with high school. You know, she's ready to start college. She wants to start creating connections and have roots in the college. And they're like, give her, like, they will like ask for her number or her Snapchat or give me some sort of information to give to her. And they're like, let her reach out. Like, we're so willing to get to know her, which was really nice to hear. And also for her to have that option.
Yeah, I especially with like me going to school, because I went somewhere where I was living on campus and I didn't really know anybody who was going to this school.
Mhm.
So the only thing I could do was reach out to people. And it was nice too, because there's a lot of people that were in the same boat as me, but there also became a point like for me now, like it's not really like with making friends, it's more of making connections with like orgs that I want to join or like jobs that I want to have in the future. And it's really hard to be able to reach out to these people. And it's the same concept of them looking as if they're untouchable and like, oh, they don't even like care to like take the time for me. But like you really never know until you actually do it. And a lot of the times, like if you do know somebody and they're like, oh, you should talk to this person, they probably know that you're going to reach out to them. That literally happened with me the other day. I had to reach out to this alumni at my school, and I was really nervous to do because he is just like a working professional, has his own life. And I was like, he's not going to want to talk to some random college student, but he was so nice and open to chat with me. So you never know until you try.
And like another example of this, and like for a lot of people, this may sound daunting, especially if you're like a lot of our younger listeners and you never had to think this far in advance, but finding a place, finding roommates. I'm right now in the process of moving out. So I'm seeing places and trying to figure out what I like and don't like and what I'm willing to compromise for and what not. And just to schedule a visit to some of these places is very, not only scary, but it's hard. Like they're asking you questions about yourself that you don't even know. So having to really like look into that stuff and figure out, you know, what to do in that case, but also like finding roommates. To live on campus, you got to find roommates. Start that process now. You know, start doing that mindset right now, and it prepares you for when you're older and what you are willing to do when you have to get your own place outside of school.
Yeah. One piece of advice I have for Menna and anybody else who is listening who is going through a process where they're either going to start some like college where they have roommates or move out like omnia. One piece of advice I have is your roommate does not mean that they have to be your friend. And although like you can be friends with your roommate, but like if you know somebody that you're like, oh, I'm like, we were such good friends, I'm going to live with them, they may not be great roommates, as you were saying on there. And like I've personally had experiences where I've lived with people that I was really good friends with and it hasn't been the best experience. But one thing that also is really important that is, as we were saying before, having your own alone time, you need to have roommates that are comfortable and like okay with just like being by themselves. Like, for example, if one of you is in the kitchen, the other's in the living room, and you're not talking, you're just doing your own thing, that is okay. If you have a roommate that's like constantly needing to be with you and you're like, hey, I don't appreciate how you weren't really talking with me if you were in the living room. Like it's your space too. You're allowed to have that time to yourself, even though you share the space. And like there are like people that I know, and even I've had experiences like that where like your roommates are constantly wanting your attention and to like hang out with you, and they see like if you're just in the living room, for example, and you're not talking to them and you're just doing your own thing as like just not caring about them. And it's really toxic to be in that type of environment. And so like just like as Omnia was saying again, like know what you want out of a roommate, or even if you've never experienced living with somebody like that before, just start thinking about things you like. For example, like do you want a room that's clean? Do you like want to live with people that smoke or drink or like those qualities too? Like do you want to like hang out with your roommates a lot? Are you somebody that just wants to stay to yourself more? Like just start thinking of stuff like that. And as you like start living with people, you'll get these experiences and you'll know in the future. Because that right again, like, you don't have to stay attached to these people. So you can and you learn from these experiences too. So then you know in the future, okay, I thought I would like this and I tried it out and it wasn't that great. So the next time I move out and live with somebody, this is the type of person I'm gonna look for. And know the situation, the space that you're living in. Like, for example, right now, I'm in a living space where I live with three other people, but it's 2 rooms, and in each room are 2 people. So in my actual sleeping space, I share it with somebody. And next year, it's still, I'm living with 3 people, but now we are each going to have our own individual room. So, like, my sleeping space, I have a private room just for me. And so, like, little differences like that are huge. And so knowing that type of situation, because sleeping in a room where it's like if like your bedroom at home and if you have your own bedroom is a lot different than sleeping in a room with somebody in the same room. But those type of things can change the way you think about your roommates. And if you're in a situation where you don't know what it's going to be like yet, start thinking about it so that you know what type of like living plans you want to prefer to look for if available to you.
I feel like Minna and I are a bit more flexible with both because I want to say, how old were you when we had to first start sharing a room?
Like 4.
4? Yeah. And I was like, what, 7 or 8? Yeah, we used to share a room up until I was 16 and you were 11. You were 11. So her and I shared room up until then because our parents moved and we all got our own rooms. And Minna's room originally was where my brother's room is, which is across the hall from me. And he was a wall away from me because there's a wall that separates the room. A week later, she switched rooms with him. And when we asked her why she did that, she's like, I just want to be closer to Omnia. Like, we spent our whole childhood living in the same room and we just needed a wall away from each other. And it's so funny because sometimes she'll open her door. She won't even step out of her room. She'll just knock on my door, open it and stand there and look at me. Do you want to watch? Want to hang out? Like, because we shared a room. We used to do that all the time. Just like shout from each other's beds. Like, do you want to do something? You want to play with toys? You want to play with the dolls?
We still shout from the wall.
Sometimes we knock on the wall to get each other's attention or shout at each other.
Yeah. When I was little, I used to like sleep in the bunk. My brother and I had bunk beds and we would sleep like one of us on the top bunk and one of us on the bottom bunk. And our rooms now when we moved are wall away too. So we always are like knocking on the wall and talking to each other too. I definitely feel that.
It's when you spend so much time of your life with someone, you get used to paying everything.
Yeah. You know what she said to me last week? Minna said, I'm going to miss you when you move out. Like when I go on vacations or like trips by myself with some friends, or like if I do something for a weekend and spend the night somewhere else, like my sister will text me like, why'd you have to leave, dog? I'm bored. I'm like,
yeah.
That
Like
when are you coming back?
when my brother and I went to different schools, it was so weird because we spent our entire lives together, as you and Menna know. And that was like the first time where we were separated and doing our own things. And at this point, like it still feels weird. Like I went home one day for spring break and my brother came home for a day and I got to like spend some time with him. But like even now, like we're doing our own things, but it still feels kind of weird because you do spend a lot of time. Like I did spend a lot of time with my brother, and even though like we're not living with each other anymore, like if he's going like on vacation or something or somewhere, I'm just like, yo, what are you doing? Like I want to talk to you. But yeah, it's just weird like doing that, and especially like this summer, because over the summers I would go home with my brother, but now I'm going to be living at my school's campus, and my brother's going to be living on his school's campus. So it's going to be the first summer without being with each other.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, that's this summer for us. So I'm moving out before summer starts.
Boy, I'm like, I'm not going to be at your place.
She literally is like, I'm going to come over all the time.
Yeah, I'm coming over too. Like, what?
Like, what? She thinks she's getting away.
Well, is there anything you'd like to add, Minna, before we wrap this up?
I don't know how to adult.
She's got a few short months left. And it's
I
just to
have
be
$17 in my bank account because I had to drop the college deposit. I have no money.
She scoops ice cream for a living, guys.
We've been closed for the last 3-4 days. No, we've been closed since Saturday.
Because of the register being broken.
Our register is broken, so that I've lost 2 days worth of money.
I mean, the ice cream place himself is about to lose a lot of money for being closed for that long.
Yeah. That's why, like, because like I have a minimum wage job too, and I literally work any moment I can because those hours are so vital.
It's not. I can't even work like that right now because of lacrosse season.
Yeah, yeah. I've had to cut my hours this semester because of my pledging, and I actually have to talk with my manager because of my internship. I have to like give them notice that I'm not going to be working there over this summer. So my goal is to have 2 jobs next semester.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Like, I don't think I'm gonna quit, but I'm gonna put on hold because my internship offered me a job, and then I'll be making money the way omnia does. So then if I just have like a minimum wage side job.
Yeah, that's good. Because like the job that I'm working now, I'm literally like, I can cut my hours to like 3 hours a week. And the other job that I applied for, the most amount of hours I can work a week is 10 hours. And like for me personally, with the semester that I'm going to have, that's perfect.
Well, I think we had a really great episode. I'm actually really happy we could go back to these conversations, these very adult conversations. I know the last couple ones have been a little silly and goofy. I think it's just we found our footing in the conversations we like to have and want to talk about, and it's kind of making me excited.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite podcasts to record. I really enjoyed, and I hope you listening enjoyed listening to this podcast as well, as much as we did making it. Thank you all so very greatly much for listening to this episode of Not Ready to Grow Up. If you enjoyed listening to this episode and want to listen to more episodes, please keep listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, random distributors that I didn't know we were on that I get emails from that we're on, and YouTube. Please continue to be active and follow us on our social medias, which are in the descriptions, which you should be already following and find us there. And again, please, if you're able to donate, share the Kayley Milor Memorial Scholarship. And thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everybody. And to quote Harry Styles, treat people with kindness.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.